Jake Miller wiped the grease from his hands with an old rag and looked at the clock on his garage wall. Almost 9 in the evening. He had been working on Mrs. Patterson's old truck for 3 hours, trying to get the engine to run smooth again. The truck was older than Jake himself, but he loved fixing old machines. It had character, unlike the new cars that came from the factory. The fog was rolling in thick that Tuesday night. Jake could barely see the cornfield behind his garage. Cedar Falls was a small town where nothing exciting ever happened. People brought him their broken cars, tractors, and farm equipment. He fixed them, they paid him, and life went on peaceful and quiet. Jake was about to lock up his garage when he heard a strange sound. It was not like anything he had heard before, not a car engine or a plane. It sounded like music mixed with the wind, but louder. Much louder. Then he saw the lights. Blue and white lights were dancing in the fog above the cornfield. They moved in patterns that made no sense. Jake stepped outside his garage and stared up at the lights. They were getting brighter and closer. Suddenly, there was a loud crash. The ground shook under Jake's feet. Birds flew out of the trees, scared and confused. The fog glowed bright blue for a few seconds. Then everything went quiet. Jake grabbed a flashlight from his garage and walked toward the cornfield. His heart was beating fast. Maybe a small plane had crashed. Maybe someone needed help. He pushed. Through the tall corn plants, following the smell of something burning. What he found in the middle of the field was not a plane. The ship was about the size of a school bus. But it looked nothing like any machine Jake had ever seen. The metal was smooth and curved like it had grown instead of being built. Strange symbols glowed softly on its surface, and parts of it were see-through like crystal. Steam was coming from cracks in the hull, and Jake could hear a humming sound. Coming from inside, Jake stood there for a long time, just staring. His brain was trying to make sense of what he was seeing, but it could not. This was not from Earth. This was something else entirely. A section of the ship's wall suddenly opened. With a sound like church bells, Jake jumped back, ready to run. But he did not run. He was too curious. A figure stepped out of the ship. Jake had seen aliens in movies and on television, but this was real. The being was tall, maybe 7 feet, with long arms and legs. Skin was pale purple, like lavender flowers. Its head was larger than a human head, with big dark eyes that seemed to see everything. It wore clothes that looked like they were made of the same material as the ship. The alien looked at Jake and made sounds like wind chimes. It tilted its head, studying Jake the same way Jake was studying it. Then it spoke in English. The alien said. Its voice was soft and musical, but Jake could hear the worry in it. I need help. My ship is damaged. Jake blinked several times. He was dreaming. He had to be dreaming. The alien pointed at the ship. I am Zephyr. I come from the Meridian Fleet. My ship crashed because your planet has strong electromagnetic fields. They interfere with our repair systems. Jake found his voice. You speak English? I learned your language from your radio and television signals, Zephyr said. I've been studying Earth for some time. You're Jake Miller. You fix machines. What? Made Jake feel even more strange. This alien knew who he was. How do you know my name? Your kind broadcasts much information into space, Zephyr explained. I know you are skilled with mechanical systems. This is why I chose to land near your home. Jake looked at the damaged ship, then back at Zephyr. You want me to fix your spaceship? Yes. Without repairs, I cannot leave your world. Cannot leave? Others of my kind will come looking for me. That would not be good for your planet. Jake had always been the kind of person who helped others. When Mrs. Patterson's truck broke down, he fixed it. When the school's bus would not start, he got it running. When his neighbors needed help, Jake was there. It did not matter that this neighbor was from another planet. Let me take a look, Jake said. Zephyr's large eyes seemed to get brighter. You will help me? I will try. Can't promise anything, but I will try. For the next hour, Jake crawled around the ship, looking at the damage. Zephyr explained how the ship worked. It was not like human machines at all. Instead of metal and circuits, the ship was made of living materials. The metal could heal itself, and the crystal parts stored energy like batteries, but much better. Your people build very different machines than we do, Zephyr said as Jake examined a cracked power coupling. How so? We grow our technology. We work with natural forces and try to create harmony. Your people force materials to do what you want them to do. You make them work even when they do not want to. Jake laughed. Well, sometimes you have to be stubborn with machines. They don't always cooperate. This is why I need your help, Zephyr said. Our self-repair systems expect harmony. But your electromagnetic fields are chaotic. They confuse our living metals. I need someone who thinks differently about fixing things. Jake understood. He had worked on enough foreign cars to know that different people built machines in different ways. You had to adapt your methods to match the machine. Okay, Jake said. Let's see what we can do. They worked together through the night. Used tools from his garage, but Zephyr showed him how to work with the living metal. It was like nothing Jake had ever experienced. The ship's hull felt warm under his hands, and he could sense when the repairs were working. Your hands are gifted, Zephyr said as Jake connected a power line using copper wire from an old car. You understand machines in a way that is rare even among your kind. My dad taught me, Jake said. He always said every machine has a personality. You have to learn what it wants before you can fix what is wrong. Your father was wise. Guy. Jury-rigged solutions that would have made any engineer laugh. He used car parts, wire from his garage, even some aluminum foil, to create connections between the ship's organic systems and his mechanical fixes. It should not have worked. But it did, there Jake said, as the ship's lights came back on. Try it now. Zephyr touched a crystal panel, and the ship hummed to life. The cracks in the hull began to seal themselves, and the damaged sections started to glow with healthy blue light. Incredible, Zephyr said. You have made our living technology work with your dead materials. This should not be possible. Sometimes, the impossible just needs a little help, Jake said. The sun was coming up by the time they finished. Jake was tired, dirty, and amazed by what he had just experienced. He had fixed an alien spaceship. With car parts and wires, Zephyr stood beside the repaired ship, looking at Jake with those large, dark eyes. Jake Miller, you have saved my life. You have given me back the stars. Its debt will not be forgotten. The alien reached into its clothing and pulled out a small device. It was about the size of a cell phone, but it was made of the same crystal material as the ship. It glowed softly. With inner light? Take this, Zephyr said, placing the device in Jake's hand. If you ever need help, speak into it. Help will come. Jake looked at the device. It was warm and seemed to pulse like it was alive. What is it? A quantum communicator? It will reach me anywhere in the galaxy? Zephyr paused. Jake Miller, your species is remarkable. You solve problems in ways no other race considers. This makes you valuable beyond measure. The ship's door opened, and Zephyr stepped inside. Perhaps one day, we will meet again. The ship rose silently into the morning sky. Jake watched until it disappeared into the clouds. Then he looked down at the device in his hand and wondered if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life, or the best decision he had ever made. The cornfield looked normal again, except for the circle of scorched earth where the ship had landed. Jake walked back to his garage, put the alien device in his toolbox, and tried to pretend that the most incredible night of his life had never happened. Jake Miller had not slept well. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the alien ship and Zephyr's strange purple face. Part of him wanted to believe it had all been a dream, but the small crystal device sitting in his toolbox proved otherwise. It was still warm to the touch and glowed softly in the dark. He made coffee and sat on his front porch, watching the sun come up over the cornfield. The scorched circle where the ship had landed was clearly visible in the morning light. Jake wondered if anyone else had seen the lights or heard the crash. Cedar Falls was a small town, but someone might have noticed Jake was finishing his second cup of coffee. When he saw them coming down the dirt road, 3 black cars moved in perfect formation toward his house. They were not the kind of cars people in Cedar Falls drove. These were expensive, government-looking vehicles with dark windows. Jake's stomach dropped as he watched them approach. The car stopped exactly 50 feet from his front porch. Jake counted 12 people getting out of the vehicles. They all wore dark suits and sunglasses, even though the morning was cloudy. They moved like soldiers, checking the area and positioning themselves around his property. One of them, a woman with gray hair, walked toward the porch. She was older than the others, maybe 50, with a face that looked like it never smiled. Her suit was perfectly pressed, and her shoes were polished to a mirror shine. "Mr. Miller," she said when she reached the bottom of his porch steps, "I am Agent Victoria Stone with the Department of Extraterrestrial Affairs. We need to have a conversation." Jake tried to keep his face calm, but his heart was racing. "I don't know what you're talking about." Agent Stone smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Mr. Miller, at 11:47 last night, our satellites detected an unscheduled object entering Earth's atmosphere. At 6:23 this morning, the same object left our atmosphere. The flight path leads directly to your property." She pointed toward the scorched circle behind his garage. "We also have thermal imaging that shows two figures working on an unknown craft for approximately 6 hours. Jake said nothing. His grandfather had taught him that sometimes the best thing to do was keep your mouth shut. "Furthermore," Agent Stone continued, "our equipment detected energy signatures consistent with advanced technology. Technology that does not exist on Earth. More agents were walking around his property now. They had devices that looked like metal detectors, sweeping them over the ground. One agent was taking pictures of the scorched earth. Another was collecting soil samples. "Mr. Miller," Agent Stone said, "you have made contact with an extraterrestrial being. This makes you a person of great interest to national security. Can cooperate with us here, or we can continue this discussion at a more secure location." The other agents had moved closer. Jake could see the bulges under their jackets where they carried guns. He was outnumbered and outgunned, fighting wood. "Be stupid. What do you want to know?" Jake asked. Agent Stone's smile became slightly more real. "Everything." They set up a table and chairs on Jake's front porch. Agent Stone sat across from him while two other agents stood nearby. The rest spread out around his property, continuing their investigation. "Tell me about the being you encountered," Agent Stone said, opening a tablet computer. Jake described Zephyr as best he could. The purple skin, the large eyes, the way it spoke. He told them about the damaged ship and how they had worked together. "To repair it? What did this being tell you about itself?" Agent Stone asked. "It said its name was Zephyr. It said it came from something called the Meridian Fleet." Agent Stone typed notes on her tablet. "Did it mention why it was here? What its mission was?" "It said the ship crashed because of our electromagnetic fields. It said it just needed repairs to leave, and you believed it." Jake shrugged. It seemed honest enough. Polite, you know. Said, "Thank you," when I helped. "What kind of technology did you observe?" Jake described the living metal and crystal systems, explained how the ship seemed to grow rather than being built, and how the repairs worked differently than anything he had ever seen. "The being gave you something," Agent Stone said suddenly. It was not a question. Jake tried to look confused. "What do you mean, Mr. Miller?" "Our scans showed trace amounts of alien technology on your clothing and hands. Something was transferred to you." Jake's mouth went dry. The crystal device was hidden in his toolbox, but these people seemed to know everything. "It touched my hand when it thanked me," Jake said. "Maybe that's what your machines are picking up." Agent Stone stared at him for a long moment. "Mr. Miller, lying to federal agents is a serious crime. If this being gave you any technology, any means of communication, any device of any kind, you need to tell us now." Jake met her stare. "It didn't give me anything." Questioning continued for hours. They wanted to know every detail of the encounter. What Zephyr looked like up close, what the inside of the ship was like, how the alien technology worked, what repairs Jake had made. Jake told them most of the truth. He described the ship's systems and how he had used car parts to fix them. Explained Zephyr's personality and manner of speaking. But he kept the communication device secret. Something deep inside told him not to trust these people with it. Around noon, a new car arrived. A man in a white coat got out, carrying a large briefcase. Agent Stone introduced him as Dr. Peter Hayes from the Centers for Disease Control. We need to make sure you weren't exposed to any harmful bacteria or radiation, Dr. Hayes explained as he set up his equipment. The doctor took blood samples and scanned Jake with various devices. He made Jake breathe into tubes and tested his reflexes. The whole process took an hour. Interesting, Dr. Hayes said as he read the results. Your cellular regeneration rates are elevated. Nothing dangerous, but unusual for someone your age. Does that mean, Jake asked? It means your body is healing faster than normal. Did the alien or its ship emit any kind of energy? Jake thought about the soft blue lights that had surrounded him while he worked on the ship. There were lights. Blue ones. They were pretty bright. Dr. Hayes made notes. We'll need to monitor you for the next few weeks. This could be temporary, or it could be permanent. What Jake did not tell the doctor was that he felt better than he had in years. The chronic back pain from decades of mechanical work was completely gone. His vision was sharper, and he had more energy than he had felt since he was 20. As the afternoon wore on, more vehicles arrived. Military trucks set up a perimeter around Jake's property. Soldiers in camouflage uniforms took positions in the surrounding fields. Scientists in white coats collected samples of everything they could find. Agent Stone watched it all with satisfaction. Mr. Miller, I want to be very clear about something. First contact with an alien species is not a private matter. This affects global security and humanity's future. She leaned forward in her chair. If this being contacts you again, you will. Notify us immediately. If you have any means of contacting it, you will surrender those means to us. Is that understood? Jake nodded, but the crystal device seemed to grow heavier in his pocket. Good, Agent Stone said. You're free to go about your normal business, but agents will be monitoring this area. If anything unusual happens, anything at all, you call this number. She handed him a business card with a single phone number printed. On it, as the sun began to set, the government people started packing up their equipment. Most of the vehicles left, but Jake noticed that some of the agents stayed behind. They set up in unmarked vans along the road and in the woods around his property, after everyone was gone. Jake sat on his porch and looked at the scorched earth where Zephyr's ship had landed. The world felt different now, bigger and more dangerous. He was being watched, and he knew it. That night, Jake lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The crystal device sat on his nightstand, glowing softly in the darkness. He wondered if Zephyr was safe, wherever it had gone. He wondered if the alien would try to contact him again. Most of all, he wondered if he had made the right choice by keeping the communication device secret. Agent Stone and her people seemed to think they knew what was best for humanity, but Jake was not so sure. Sometimes the right thing to do was not the same as the safe thing to do. Outside his window, Jake could see the lights of the surveillance vehicles. They would be watching him for a long time, waiting to see what would happen next. Jake pulled the covers over his head and tried to sleep, but rest did not come easily. His quiet life in Cedar Falls was over, and he had no idea what would replace it. The next morning, Agent Stone was back with more people. Jake watched from his kitchen window as black cars filled his driveway again. This time, they brought a large truck with satellite dishes and computers. Scientists in white coats carried boxes of equipment toward the scorched area behind his garage. Jake poured himself coffee and waited. He knew they would want to talk to him again. Agent Stone knocked on his door at exactly 8 o'clock. She looked like she had not slept much either. Mr. Miller, we need to continue our conversation from yesterday, she said. We have some new questions. They sat at his kitchen table this time. Agent Stone had a thick folder with her, full of papers and photographs. We've analyzed the soil samples from your property, she began. The composition is unlike anything we've seen before. There are trace elements that don't exist naturally on Earth. Jake sipped his coffee and said nothing. We also found microscopic metal fragments embedded in the ground. The metal has a crystalline structure that our scientists can't identify. Agent Stone opened the folder and showed Jake's photographs of what looked like tiny jewels. These fragments contain your DNA, Mr. Miller. My DNA. Yes, which means you had direct physical contact with the alien technology. More contact than you told us about yesterday. Jake thought about working inside the ship, touching the living metal with his bare hands. He had not mentioned that part of the story. I had to touch the ship to fix it, Jake said. You can't repair something without getting your hands on it. Agent Stone made notes. What exactly did you touch? Be specific. For the next 2 hours, Jake described the repair work in detail. He explained how the living metal felt warm under his hands, how the crystal systems responded to his touch, and how he had connected his car parts to the alien technology. The being spoke about your species thinking differently, Agent Stone said, reading from her notes. What did it mean by that? Said we force things to work while they try to work with natural forces, like the difference between wrestling a bull and leading a horse. And it valued this difference? Jake nodded, seemed to think it was useful. Agent Stone closed her folder and leaned back in her chair.
Oh.
Mr. Miller, we believe this encounter was not random. We think you were specifically chosen. What do you mean? Think about it. An alien ship crashes, and it just happens to land near the home of one of the most skilled mechanics in the county. A man known for fixing impossible problems with simple solutions. Jake had not thought about it that way, but Agent Stone was right. Cedar Falls had dozens of farms and hundreds of empty fields. The chances of the ship landing near his garage were very small. We think this being studied our communications and specifically chose you, Agent Stone continued. Which means this encounter was planned, not accidental. That afternoon, Dr. Hayes returned with more medical equipment. He ran the same tests as before, plus several new ones. Your cellular regeneration rates have increased again, the doctor told Jake as he packed up his instruments. You're healing at roughly twice the normal human rate. Is that dangerous? We don't know. This kind of enhancement has never been documented before. Dr. Hayes looked worried. Mr. Miller, the alien technology has changed you on a biological level. We need to understand how and why. Changed me how? Your muscle density has increased. Your reflexes are faster. Your eyesight is better than perfect. Even your brain activity shows improvements in pattern recognition and problem solving. Jake flexed his hands. He had noticed that he felt stronger, but he had thought it was just from getting better sleep. We need to run more tests, Dr. Hayes said. Extensive tests. You'll need to come to our facility in Washington. I'm not going anywhere, Jake said firmly. Dr. Hayes and Agent Stone exchanged looks. Mr. Miller, Agent Stone said, you may not have a choice. You've been exposed to alien technology that's changing your body in unknown ways. This is a matter of national security. I feel fine. Better than fine, actually. That's what worries us, Dr. Hayes said. We don't know if these changes are permanent, progressive, or potentially harmful. You could be a danger to yourself or others. Jake stood up from the kitchen table. I think this conversation is over. Agent Stone remained seated. Mr. Miller, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. But one way or another, you're coming with us for evaluation. Through the kitchen window, Jake could see more government vehicles arriving. Military trucks this time, with soldiers. You're arresting me? We're placing you in protective custody for your own safety and the safety of others, Agent Stone said. Pack a bag. You're coming to Washington tonight. Jake felt trapped. He could see soldiers positioning themselves around his house. There was no way to run, and fighting would be suicide. Can I get some things from my garage? Jake asked. Agent Stone nodded. Agent Martinez will escort you. Jake walked to his garage with Agent Martinez following close behind. The younger agent was polite but alert, his hand never far from his weapon. Just need my good tools, Jake said, opening his toolbox. As he reached for his wrenches, Jake palmed the crystal communication device. It was warm against his skin, warmer than it had been before. He slipped it into his pocket while pretending to look for a screwdriver. Take your time, Agent Martinez said, but don't try anything stupid. Jake packed his best tools in a canvas bag. As he worked, he could feel the crystal device pulsing gently in his pocket. It seemed to be responding to his stress. They drove through the night to Washington. Jake sat in the back of a black SUV between two agents, watching the countryside pass by. He had never been more than 50 miles from Cedar Falls in his life. Government facility was a massive concrete building surrounded by fences and guard towers. They processed Jake like a prisoner, taking his fingerprints and photographs. They gave him a room that looked like a hospital with a bed, a sink, and a small window that would not open. "You'll be comfortable here," Agent Stone said as she showed him the room. "Meals will be brought to you, and you'll have access to television and books." "How long am I staying?" "That depends on the test results. Could be days, could be weeks." After Agent Stone left, Jake sat on the bed and looked around his new prison. The walls were white and bare, with a single door that he was sure was locked. From the outside, he pulled out the crystal device and held it in his hands. It was glowing brighter now, and he could feel it vibrating slightly. For 3 days they ran tests: blood work, brain scans, physical examinations, psychological evaluations. Jake answered their questions but volunteered nothing extra. He could sense their frustration growing. Dr. Hayes was particularly interested in Jake's enhanced abilities. They made him solve puzzles, lift weights, and react to visual stimuli. Each test showed that Jake was becoming more than human. "Changes are accelerating," Dr. Hayes told Agent Stone during one of their conversations outside Jake's room. Jake could hear them through the thin walls, another improvement to his senses. "Is he dangerous?" Agent Stone asked. "Not directly. But we don't understand the full extent of the modifications. He could develop abilities we can't predict or control." "What do you recommend?" "Indefinite containment until we understand what's happening to him." That night, alone in his room, Jake made a decision. He had helped Zephyr when the alien needed it, and now he needed help. He activated the communication device. "Zephyr," he whispered into the crystal. "Can you hear me?" The device grew warm in his hands, and suddenly Zephyr's musical voice filled the small room. "Jake Miller, friend of distant worlds. I hear you clearly. You are in distress. They've locked me up, the government. They're running tests on me because your ship changed me somehow. I feared this might happen. Your authorities are cautious about what they do not understand. Can you help me?" There was a pause before Zephyr answered. "Jake Miller, what I am about to tell you may seem impossible, but the changes in your body were not accidental." "What do you mean?" "The energy from our ship was meant to prepare you. You and others like you. We have great need of human engineers, and we knew your people would not easily trust us with their best minds." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Prepare me for what?" "A crisis approaches that threatens all civilized worlds. We need human creativity and ingenuity to solve it. But first we must earn the trust of your leaders." "How?" "Be patient, Jake Miller. Help comes, but it must come at the right time and in the right way. Your world is not ready for the truth, but it will be soon." The communication ended, leaving Jake alone with more questions than answers. Outside his window, he could see lights in the sky that might have been stars or might have been something else entirely. 3 days later, the lights in the sky were definitely not stars. Jake had been in the government facility for 5 days when the alarm started going off. He was lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling and thinking about home, when loud sirens began wailing throughout the building. Red lights flashed in his room. He could hear people running in the hallways outside his door, shouting orders and coordinates. Something big was happening. Agent Stone burst into his room without knocking. Her usually perfect hair was messy, and she looked scared. "Mr. Miller, we need to talk now." She led him down hallways filled with rushing people to a room he had never seen before. It was full of computer screens and monitors showing what looked like radar images. Military officers and scientists crowded around the displays, pointing and talking in urgent voices. "Look at this," Agent Stone said, pointing to the largest screen. Jake saw dozens of bright dots moving across a dark background. They were arranged in perfect formations, moving toward Earth from the outer edges of the solar system. "What am I looking at?" Jake asked. "Ships," Agent Stone said. "Alien ships. Hundreds of them. Our deep space monitoring stations detected them 6 hours ago." Jake's heart started beating faster. "Are they hostile?" "We don't know. They're not responding to any of our communications. They're just coming straight toward Earth." A military officer approached them. He was an older man with gray hair and stars on his uniform. General Coleman, Agent Stone said. This is Jake. Miller, the general looked Jake up and down. So you're the one who talked to them? I talked to one of them, Jake corrected. Oh, now hundreds of them are coming here. Has any idea what they want? Jake thought about his last conversation with Zephyr. The alien had mentioned a crisis and needing human help. But Jake was not sure if he should tell these people about that. The one I met seemed peaceful. Jake said carefully. Peaceful or not, we have a potential invasion fleet heading our way, General Coleman said. We need to know everything about these beings and their technology. Agent Stone pulled Jake aside. Mr. Miller, I know you've been holding back information. Now is not the time for games. If you know anything that could help us understand what's happening, you need to tell us. Jake looked around the room at all the worried faces. These people were scared, and he could understand why. But he also remembered Zephyr's kindness and the alien's genuine need for help. The alien I met mentioned something about a crisis, Jake said finally. Something that threatened all civilized worlds. What kind of crisis? It didn't say exactly, but it mentioned needing human help to solve it. General Coleman stepped closer. Human help with what? Engineering problems? Said humans think differently than other species? Solve problems in ways others don't consider? Agent Stone and the general exchanged looks. Sir, a young officer called from across the room. The lead ships have reached Jupiter's orbit. They'll be here in 18 hours at current speed. Any weapon signatures? General Coleman asked.
None that we can detect, sir.
But their technology is so advanced we might not recognize weapons if we saw them. Jake pulled the crystal communication device from his pocket. He had been hiding it for days, but the situation was getting too serious for secrets. I can contact them, he said. Everyone in the room turned to stare at him. Agent Stone's eyes went wide. What is that? She demanded. Communication device. The alien gave it to me before it left. General Coleman's face turned red. You've had alien technology this entire time and didn't tell us. I wasn't sure I could trust you with it, Jake said honestly. Mr. Miller, Agent Stone said in a dangerous voice, you are under arrest for obstruction of justice and withholding evidence vital to national security. Wait, Jake said, holding up the device. Do you want to talk to them or not? General. Coleman held up a hand to stop Agent Stone. Can you really contact them? Yes, but I'm not doing it as your prisoner. If you want my help, we do this as partners. You're not in a position to make demands, Agent Stone said. Actually, I am, Jake replied. I'm the only person on Earth who has talked to these beings. I'm the only one they trust. And I'm the only one with a way to communicate with them. General Coleman thought for a moment. What do you want? Respect. No more lies, no more treating me like a criminal. And when this is over, I go home. Done, the general said, ignoring Agent Stone's angry look. Jake activated the crystal device. It glowed brightly in his hands, brighter than it ever had before. Zephyr, he said into the device, we need to talk. The device projected Zephyr's image into the center of the room. Everyone stepped back as the holographic alien appeared, tall and graceful with its purple skin and large dark eyes. Jake Miller, Zephyr said, its voice filling the room like music. I greet you across the void. I see you are with your leaders. General Coleman stepped forward. I am General Coleman, United States military. Are you invading our planet? Zephyr tilted its head. Invading. No, General Coleman. We come seeking help. Help with what? Agent Stone asked. 3 cycles ago, a plague began spreading through the civilized worlds. It affects only organic technology, causing our ships, cities, and life support systems to fail. Millions have died. Billions more are at risk. The room went quiet. Jake could see the fear in people's faces changing to confusion. What does this have to do with Earth? General Coleman asked. Your species builds technology differently than any other we have encountered, Zephyr explained. Where we create living systems, you create static ones that endure. This fundamental difference may be the key to our survival. Zephyr gestured, and the hologram expanded to show images of vast alien cities. Beautiful structures that looked grown rather than built, with organic curves and flowing lines. But parts of the cities were dark and dead, their biomechanical components withered like dying plants. The plague targets the connection between consciousness and matter that allows our technology to live, Zephyr continued, but your dead technology is immune. We need human engineers to help us build systems that can resist the plague. Why should we help you? Agent Stone asked. What's in it for humanity? Because the plague will eventually reach Earth, Zephyr said simply. It spreads through quantum resonance fields. Your planet will be affected within 10 of your years. The room erupted in worried voices. Scientists started talking about quantum fields and plague vectors. Military officers discussed defense strategies. Furthermore, Zephyr continued, we offer technology exchange, clean energy that could power your world for millennia, medical advances that could eliminate most diseases, environmental restoration techniques that could heal your damaged planet. General Coleman held up his hand for silence. What exactly are you asking for? 20 human engineers? Volunteers? They would work with our people for 1 of your years, then return home safely. In exchange, we share technologies that will benefit all humanity, and if we refuse, Agent Stone asked, then we will attempt to solve the crisis ourselves and likely fail. The plague will spread, civilizations will fall, and eventually it will reach Earth. Humanity will face the same fate as countless other species. Jake stepped forward. Zephyr, you enhanced me somehow. Changed my body. Why? The energy exposure was necessary preparation, Jake Miller. Human physiology must be adapted to work safely with our technology. The changes make you more capable, not less human. Are there others like me? 7 others across your world? Engineers and problem solvers who encountered our scout ships over the past year. All were prepared in the same way. Agent Stone looked shocked. There have been other encounters? Small crashes? Quickly covered up by your governments? But yes, we have been studying human engineering methods and preparing suitable candidates. General Coleman paced back and forth, thinking, if we agree to this, how do we know you'll keep your word? How do we know you won't just take our people and leave? Because General Coleman, we have no choice but to trust each other. The plague threatens all life in this galaxy. If we fail, everyone dies. If we succeed, everyone lives. The choice is that simple. Jake looked around the room at the worried faces. He thought about Zephyr's kindness when they had worked together on the ship. He thought about billions of beings facing extinction from a plague that could eventually reach Earth. I'll go, Jake said. Everyone turned to stare at him. Jake, Agent Stone said, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do, Jake replied. It's the right thing to do.
Us.
Zephyr's large eyes seemed to brighten. Jake Miller, your courage honors your species. General Coleman nodded slowly. If Miller volunteers, and if we can establish proper protocols for the exchange, then we have a deal. Outside the facility windows, the first alien ships appeared in Earth's sky like silver stars, beautiful and alien, carrying the hopes of civilizations across the galaxy. The next 3 days were a whirlwind of activity. Jake found himself at the center of preparations for humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization. Scientists, diplomats, and military officers all wanted to talk to him about the Meridian Fleet and their technology. Dr. Hayes ran more tests on Jake's enhanced abilities. The doctor was amazed by what he found. Your cellular regeneration has stabilized at roughly 3 times normal human rate, Dr. Hayes explained as he showed Jake the test results. Your muscle density has increased by 40%, and your neural processing speed is off the charts. Am I still human? Jake asked. You're human plus, Dr. Hayes said with a smile. Think of it as an upgrade that makes you compatible with alien technology. Meanwhile, other enhanced humans were being brought to the facility. Jake met them over the following days. There was Maria Santos, a mechanical engineer from Texas who had encountered a crashed alien probe 6 months ago. Danny Chen, an electronics specialist from California, who had helped repair an alien communication array. Lisa Thompson, software programmer from Michigan who had figured out how to interface human computers with alien systems. All of them had been changed by exposure to alien technology. All of them were volunteers for the mission to help fight the plague. We're like a special club, Danny joked during one of their planning meetings. The only humans who can work with living metal and crystal computers. Agent Stone was not happy about losing Jake and the others to the aliens, but she had accepted that it was necessary. The president has approved the mission, she told them. During a briefing, you'll be the first human ambassadors to an alien civilization. Don't mess it up. On the morning of departure, Jake stood on the roof of the government facility and watched the Meridian fleet ships descending through Earth's atmosphere. There were dozens of them, each one beautiful and unique. They moved like living things. Flowing through the air with grace and purpose, the largest ship landed in a field near the facility. It was enormous, easily the size of a football stadium, but it touched down as gently as a feather. The hull was semi-transparent, showing complex internal structures that pulsed with soft light. Jake and the other volunteers were driven to the landing site in a convoy of military vehicles. Hundreds of soldiers, scientists, and officials watched from a safe distance as they approached the alien ship. Zephyr was waiting for them at the ship's entrance. The alien looked exactly as Jake remembered, tall and graceful with purple skin and large dark eyes. But now Jake could see that Zephyr wore some kind of ceremonial clothing covered in symbols that glowed like stars. "Jake Miller," Zephyr said as Jake approached, "you have kept your word. This honors your species greatly." "I told you I would help," Jake replied. "These are the other volunteers." Zephyr greeted each human individually, speaking their names and thanking them for their courage. Jake was impressed by how much the alien had learned about each person. "Before we depart," Zephyr announced to the crowd of watching humans, "we wish to share a gift as a symbol of trust between our peoples." The alien gestured toward the ship, and a section of the hull opened. Several Meridian fleet members emerged, carrying devices that looked like crystalline trees. "These are biological air purifiers," Zephyr explained to General Coleman and the other officials. "They will clean the atmosphere in a 50-mile radius, removing pollutants and restoring natural balance. We give them freely to show our good intentions." The alien devices were planted in the ground around the landing site. Within minutes, the air itself seemed cleaner and fresher. Birds that had been hiding came out to investigate, and flowers in nearby fields seemed to brighten. "This is just the beginning," Zephyr said. "When we return successful from our mission, we will share much more." Jake turned to say goodbye to Agent Stone and Dr. Hayes. The agent looked uncomfortable, but she shook his hand. "Bring back something useful," she said gruffly. Dr. Hayes was more emotional. "You're making history, Jake. Don't forget that. I'll try not to let it go to my head." Jake replied with a grin. The inside of the Meridian fleet ship was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The corridors were alive, pulsing gently with bioluminescent light. The walls were warm to the touch and seemed to respond to the presence of the humans. Zephyr led them to their quarters, which had been specially prepared for human visitors. The rooms were comfortable but alien, with furniture that grew from the floor and windows that showed holographic views of space. "The journey to the affected systems will take several of your days," Zephyr explained. "Use this time to rest and prepare. When we arrive, the work will be difficult and dangerous." That night, as the ship left Earth's orbit, Jake stood at his window watching his home planet shrink into the distance. He had never been more than 50 miles from Cedar Falls before. And now, he was traveling to another star system. The other volunteers gathered in a common area to talk about what lay ahead. "I keep thinking about my workshop," Jake said. "My tools and projects just sitting there waiting for me to come back. My cat is probably wondering where I am," Lisa added. "My neighbor is taking care of him, but he's not going to understand why I disappeared." "We're making history," Maria said. "Our grandchildren will read about this in school, if we live long enough to have grandchildren," Danny pointed out darkly. "We'll make it," Jake said with confidence he did not entirely feel. "We're humans. We're good at fixing things that are broken." The next day, Zephyr gave them their first look at the plague's effects. The aliens showed them holographic recordings from affected worlds, and Jake was shocked by what he saw. Entire cities stood dark and dead. Their organic technology withered like drought-killed plants. Ships drifted powerless in space. They're living. Hulls cracked and gray. Millions of beings lived in primitive conditions, cut off from the technology that had sustained their civilization for thousands of years. The plague spreads through quantum resonance, Zephyr explained. It targets the consciousness field that allows our technology to live. Once infected, organic systems lose the ability to self-repair and maintain themselves. But it doesn't affect non-living technology? Maria asked. Correct? Your dead machines are completely immune? This is why we need human engineering methods. Studied the recordings carefully. You need us to build hybrid systems. Living technology controlled by non-living components. Exactly. But the integration must be perfect, or the plague will find a way to spread through the connections. Spent the rest of the journey learning about Meridian fleet technology and plague countermeasures. Jake was amazed by the sophistication of alien engineering, but he could also see where human methods might help. You build everything to work in harmony, he told Zephyr during one of their technical discussions. But sometimes you need systems that fight against natural forces instead of working with them. This is what we hope to learn from you, Zephyr replied. When they finally arrived at their destination, Jake got his first look at a plague-affected world. The planet below was mostly dark, with only scattered points of light showing where survivors had managed to maintain basic technology. This was once home to 2 billion beings, Zephyr said sadly. Now fewer than 50 million remain alive. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The fate of entire civilizations might depend on whether he and the other humans could find a solution to the plague. As their ship descended toward the planet's surface, Jake thought about his quiet life in Cedar Falls. He had gone from fixing pickup trucks to potentially saving the galaxy. It was a long way from changing oil and replacing spark plugs, but as he watched the dead cities growing larger in the view screen, Jake rolled up his sleeves and got ready to do what he did best: fix things that were broken, no matter how impossible. The job seemed the galaxy was counting on humanity's stubborn refusal to accept that anything was truly unfixable.